Hey guys, welcome back. It's Ripe again, back with more HOA stories. In this video, a ridiculous homeowner association psycho literally stole my home and took it away. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is titled HOA Malicious Compliance. So I've seen a bunch of HOA stories lately and have never shared a malicious compliance one before, but I've been inspired to share this story from my parents. So this was about 10 years ago, 2010-ish. My family lived in a very nice gated community with an HOA. It was during the summer and most weekends we would bring our boat to the house on Friday nights to take out on Saturdays and then move it back to where we stored it on Saturday night. The HOA had a rule where you are not allowed to keep boats within view of the street. Our driveway ran up beside the house and we would intentionally position it to be as invisible as possible for the one night it would be there. Basically, all that was visible was a small T-top over my dad's truck. Our HOA was actually pretty awesome, super laid back, and really only did anything when there was a complaint. It was a relatively small neighborhood, less than 50 houses, and the HOA was really good at throwing monthly parties where we would shut down a cul-de-sac and everyone would bring food and music and we would all have fun. This was kind of what an HOA is supposed to be in theory, a good thing. Well, Karen had made a complaint to the board about our boat and had provided time-stamped photos of multiple violations, mind you, one night a week, but she had claimed it was consistent. The president came by to tell us and it wasn't there when he was. We told him our side of the story. Basically, it was only there for about 12 hours on the weekend, and he said he nor anyone on the board had ever noticed it, but since they had a complaint, they had to request that we remove it. I completely doubt that they'd actually fine or do anything past asking, but rules are rules, so cue my father's mastery of the art of malicious compliance. Well, an important bit of information about this piece of property: when the neighborhood was built, my dad bought the house as well as a property bordering the back of ours that was not a part of the HOA or in the neighborhood and originally had a small chain link fence between it and the house. It was accessible through a small street with a few homes on it bordering our neighborhood, and well, my dad's beautiful brain started thinking about, and for the cost and inconvenience of storing it at a storage place, he could probably just build a pad for it behind the house. He actually had a gravel pad put in the corner of the property with a shed over it, intentionally as close to the edge of the property as possible, so it would preserve the view out the back or be very visible from the front of the house, either one. There wasn't any real backlash about it, and apparently Karen had brought it up again, and the board politely informed her that they had no control over that property, and I think she admitted defeat. The board actually found it pretty funny and never had any other issues with them. Karen moved about a year later and my parents moved about 2 years ago. Loved the neighborhood though, genuinely a positive HOA experience, just an annoying Karen to make life inconvenient. And yeah, Ripe Stars, the thing about these stories is that obviously not every single HOA in the world is as terrible as most of these HOAs in our stories. However, it does seem like that HOAs do attract these damn entitled Karens that can certainly make your life super difficult if they want to. So even if the management is fine like an OP's HOA, there's still a good chance that you will end up with a horrible Karen neighbor. Anyway, I'm curious, have you ever had such an entitled Karen neighbor? And if so, what happened? Let us know in the comments. And while you're at it, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much, and now let's continue to the title story. And no, Karen stealing OP's house is not actually a typo. So about 20 years ago, I took a look at my life and realized that I was totally miserable. I was living in the suburbs and had a typical job and just hated every second of it. Dealing with a big house for no reason and being around people with the constant chattering and problems. I moved onto a piece of land that didn't really have much of anything around it. I got a mobile home, which at the time was pretty sad, but over the years they've made much better ones. With all the amenities I could need and honestly barely looking like what most people think of when they hear mobile home. I think nowadays most people call them manufactured homes, but I stick with what I'm used to. In case you want to Google a picture though, try manufactured home. Anyway, the life was so much better than before, and I got to be out in the wild outdoors. Get a couple of dogs that love to run around the property too. It was perfect for the first 10 years, and then stuff started changing. I was not the only person that noticed the big empty land, and some developer came in and bought up a huge chunk of it. building houses and basically another suburb-type community that I was trying to get away from. Luckily, I owned a good amount of the land and was able to keep my distance from them. I'm not antisocial or anything, I just like living where I can breathe and not be on top of a ton of other people. I made friends and got to know some of the people in that nearby community, and they seemed nice enough. More years passed with no problems, and then about 5 years ago, an HOA formed in that community. Something that shouldn't have affected me at all, but of course the people running it didn't see things that way. One of them showed up to my property to speak to me. She didn't look like she belonged near the wilderness with her big hair and bigger attitude. She was an entitled Karen. Me, can I help you? Karen, I'm here to talk about your property and some violations I noticed. Me, what do you mean violations? Are you from the state or something? HOA Karen, no, I'm with the HOA obviously. We put some new bylaws into effect and your property seems to be breaking quite a few of them. It really is unacceptable. Me, I'm gonna stop you right there. I think you got confused because I am not part of the HOA or the neighborhood. I just live next door to you all. HOA, excuse you, don't interrupt me when I'm speaking. She kept insisting that I was part of the HOA and said that I owed her money and that I had to fix the problems. I was steaming because I left to get away from nimrods like her, and here she was trying to screw me over. So, not listening to a word I said, I ignored her and went on living my life, getting letters and stuff from the HOA constantly telling me that I was violating rules and owed them money. Not that it mattered, but if you're curious, they were saying that my home was illegal. Since it was a mobile home, it didn't have foundation in the ground, which they were claiming violated rules. So apparently mobile homes were not allowed and I had to get rid of it and get a more traditional home. I told them to call the cops and tried telling them to get me to throw away my house. I was here long before them and knew most of the local police department. They never had a problem with me and I knew they would not side with the HOA. The HOA knew it too because they decided to get sneaky about it. I went to the doctor to get checked out, but due to the remote area, it basically meant I was gone all day. I came back to find that my house was gone. Tire tracks leading off the property and onto the main road. Basically, I had been robbed of my entire home and everything in it. The only thing they left were my dogs who were running around confused and looking for me. I had some camping equipment that I kept in my trunk, so I was at least able to camp out for the night and figure everything out in the morning. I knew that Karen had something to do with it and would report her for stealing my house. Like I said before, I was friendly with the entire police department and they agreed to search the area for where my house could have been stashed. It's not like hiding a key or something, it's a whole house. There were a lot of people that could have done it, but with how much Karen had been harassing me to get rid of it, she was a prime suspect. They must have scared her something awful, because she didn't last long before blabbing to them where my house was. I got it back on my property, but you can be sure I was pressing charges and taking Karen to court for stealing from me. In fact, I decided to sue the HOA as a whole for harassment, theft, trespassing and threats, etc. I don't know what they told their lawyers, but they went in with a ton of wrong information that just ruined the entire case for them. They were countersuing, claiming that I owed them like $30,000 in fines and had stolen back a property that they had repossessed due to lack of payments. Which honestly makes zero sense because you cannot repossess a thing that you never owned in the first place. Their lawyer started going off about how it had been a year and the HOA had not received a single monthly payment that I owed, did not pay a single fine that had been issued to me, and I refused to comply with them. And therefore, under HOA law, they were allowed to take my property and sell it to get themselves paid. The judge might have thought it was an open and shut case of an HOA member not wanting to follow rules. However, then my lawyer started to speak and the judge got a really serious look on his face and the opposing lawyer looked really confused and started whispering to the HOA Karen. My lawyer said that there was nothing on file for me joining the HOA in the first place and agreeing to their terms. That I was living there before the HOA and could not be forced into joining either. Finally, the fact that my property on a map was outside of the HOA neighborhood, meaning that even if I wanted to be part of the HOA, I couldn't. Then the police report was shown of my home being stolen from me with all of my possessions in it, a repo that didn't make any sense but also not even having a paper trail. The HOA had to pay me a bunch of money, but also for breaking the law, Karen had a ton of personal fines and even community service to do. I think the only thing that let her escape a jail sentence was the fact that my home was found the next day with nothing sold or missing. I think it was still crap that Karen didn't go to jail, but at least she didn't get off scot-free. Something about thinking her with a big hair and fancy purse being made to pick up trash makes me smile. Not all revenge is created equal, but if it keeps her out of my hair, I'm happy about it. Also, the HOA was told if they contacted me again, they would be arrested for harassment and facing much bigger charges for a repeat offense. All of this was 3 years ago, and so far I have not heard a peep from any of them. Honestly, I expected Karen at least to blame me and try to come back and yell at me, but it turns out that people didn't like living next to a thief, and while nobody could make her leave officially, there were other ways. People made it clear she wasn't liked or wanted, and she was shockingly smart enough to get the hints and leave once all her community service was served. And the next one is titled, "My Neighbor's Cat Adopted Me." So here's the thing, I've tried to get rid of the cat, he won't go away, my neighbor is threatening to sue me, and so is my landlord. I have my own cat and a pet door. My cat goes in and out as she pleases, to use the litter box and to probably get into trouble. But lately, my neighbor's cat, who is male, has invited himself inside via the cat door. He does it late at night, in the mornings, whenever. At first I would shoo him out, but that made him come in even when I was asleep to eat my cat's food. Apparently my cat food is better than his. I've been woken up by him meowing and he often sprays my walls, leaving a horrible stink. I've tried spraying this thing with the hose, yelling at him, gently throwing him back over the fence, getting those things that are supposed to scare off cats with sound, locking the pet door, but he meows at my door in that case and nothing works. He now pretty much lives in my yard 24/7, I've given up getting rid of him. He runs in when I open my door, the garage door, whatever, and then hides so I cannot find him to toss him back out. Now my lease says that I can have one cat, which I do, but now comes the problem. So basically my landlord came over for an inspection, which I was aware of. The problem is my neighbor's cat came running in while he was there and sprayed the wall, jumped on my counter and began eating my lunch. So it looked like I owned 2 cats. My landlord then asked if it was mine, which I replied it was my neighbor's. He says another neighbor has complained that the cat is over at their house every day spraying around and they've seen it come to my house, so of course it must be mine. He is now fining me and telling me to get rid of the cat as he is ruining the walls. My neighbor is also unhappy with this because she doesn't see her cat much. I've personally walked him over to her door, handed him to her and see her toss it right back out after I leave. She is now threatening to sue me for stealing her property. She doesn't want to keep him inside because he meows and whenever she lets him out, he's right back in my yard. She's also mad because he's gotten fat on my cat food. No matter where I hide it, the cat gets into the bag for lunch in the middle of the night. She is saying that I've damaged her property. Can my landlord/neighbor actually fine/sue me for a cat that I've tried to get rid of? How do I respond? I'm going to see if I can find a few neighbors to sign papers saying that she owns the cat, so I'm not too worried about my landlord, but my neighbor? Help please! My neighbor's cat won't go home. Few more things to add. I like this cat, he's a sweetie, but he sprays everywhere and he's a real gentleman when he visits otherwise. I'm actually getting married and we are buying a house in a few months. Could I get in serious trouble if the cat tries to visit whoever moves into this house? Could I in theory take the cat? I would not, honest, one is enough for me, but if I wanted to, could I and just let her sue me for the cost of said cat? He is also not fixed, no shots, and I doubt that he's microchipped. She doesn't seem to care about him too much. It's more of a, oh, he was a cute kitten, but now he's not situation. She is a bit of a nutter, dislikes me ever since my tree fell over into her yard. He is scruffy looking and has a nice share of matted fur that I've been slowly brushing out. Can I actually be sued for damaging her property for getting the cat fat? Can the landlord withhold my deposit for any damage he causes? Also, my cat is female and spayed, so it's not like she sprays walls. Edit, apparently people have problems with my sense of smell. I grew up with horses and 6 male cats to catch mice. I'm sure my sense of smell is shot. Also, vinegar and orange cleaner get the smell out in a jiffy if it's not been there too long. Seriously, try it. I'm sure this sounds more extreme than it is, and seriously, legal advice best of, not worthy. I was tired when I wrote it, so I'm not sure it's a jumble. It's more of a, this lady is a nutter, am I actually gonna get served? Than a serious worry. More for my curiosity than anything. Update, so I asked my landlord, installing a special pet door is out of the question, he won't allow it and the cat sneaks in other ways. I once left a window cracked half an inch, he pushed it open and let himself in. I did get a neighbor to sign a letter saying it's not my cat. And by the way, Ripe Stars, just to quickly interject here, Honestly, a cat trespassing on your property is definitely much more preferred than an entitled Karen trespassing. I do understand OP's worries though. Anyway, my landlord accepts that but now thinks that I'm encouraging it and need to solve the problem. After 6 months and $500, I've tried to get rid of it. I may end up calling the shelter. Update to the story, I tripled my efforts to get rid of him, and until he spent his nights meowing at my porch and upsetting my other neighbors. My landlord has now served me fines for A. noise and B. damage caused by the cat, because he comes into my house despite admitting that I don't own the cat. I did not get much in the way of legal advice last time, so I'm hoping for new advice. Can my landlord fine me for damages caused by a cat I don't own? Can I sue her for the damages? Edit. Guys, I've tried to get rid of the cat. You seem to think that I go out feeding it every day. I haven't done that for months. I used to because I felt awful for it, but once he got old enough to spray out, he went. I know everyone thinks a water gun will solve the issue, but I'm being sued. This is legal advice, not cat advice. I just want to know if I can get the fines lifted from my landlord and if her suing me based on fattening up her cat and now making it skinny because I don't feed it has merit and if I should lawyer up. By the way, in terms of things I've tried, yelling at it, spraying it with the hose, getting little sound devices that blast air when it senses motion, hiding in my house and playing ninja to get out, locking my pet food up so my cat is unhappy, putting all the human food away, baby-proofing anything that he may get into, calling animal control, they are useless by the way. If the cat is not right there when they show up, they won't do anything, talking to my neighbor, talking to her landlord, talking to my landlord, borrowing spray guns from my neighbors, locking my pet door, more yelling at him, etc. Update number 2, my dad got me an early wedding gift, a lawyer. It turns out those were not legal papers my insane neighbor served me, I've just never dealt with anything legal at all and was an idiot. I think she can get in trouble for trying to pass them off as legal papers, but I don't care at this point, I'm done with her. I took everyone's advice and hauled off the kitty to the tune of $25 each time for 3 times. My neighbor went crazy and showed up on my doorstep screaming about how I was going to pay for getting Kitty out of jail and I was stealing her property again. And now that I damaged it because the shelter made her kitty get shots as well as being fixed. Luckily for me, I had a recorder handy while she went off on this rant. She even approved to me recording to get proof that I stole her cat. My lawyer took it to my landlord and with a strongly worded letter, he dropped the fees against me for having another cat. Kind of hard to ignore that it's her cat by that point. I did agree to leave behind my pet deposit when I move out for cleaning, caused by him though. My lawyer sent her a strongly worded letter to leave me alone or face harassment charges to my neighbor. She then showed up on my doorstep with said kitty and said that I deserved him because I was a horrible person and he was ruined. So I called my lawyer again because A, I cannot have 2 cats in my house and B, what if she claims I stole it? She screamed that she didn't want it. Whenever he tried to go home, she would yell and throw things at him. By the way, I have this recorded. In the end, my lawyer ended up calling for a welfare check on her for being nutty. I'm not sure the outcome of that and honestly I don't care. She's gone quiet for now and that's all I can ask for. I'm getting married in 2 weeks and will be out of this joint. As for the kitty, I felt horrible for him. Instead of calling for animal abuse, he is now living with my father, who has a very small farm with goats. I still have my lawyer on retainer in case she decides to actually sue me over the cat, but who knows. Fingers crossed she will leave me alone now. Thanks for all the advice, everyone. And here, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this story, but I would say that's quite a positive ending, especially for the kitten in the end. And I hope that the cat has finally found his forever home with a not nutcase of an owner. Clearly, that woman was not fit to handle this cat. The next one starts like this. I'll start by saying that I take my career and food safety very seriously. Even if I was livid over a customer, I would never do anything gross, dirty, harmful, etc. to their food, and I would shut down someone else trying to do the same. I prefer my revenge to be petty but noticed. The restaurant I work in is located in an upscale area, and as a result, our customer base is full of entitled, elitist, and insufferable people most days. If you have a problem with your food, that's fine. But if you are an a-hole or being petty, you will get served by Chef Patty, the king of petty. So now to the first point, the so-called crouton debacle. So this pair of older women came in one day and they were immediately rude to the hostess and server from what I was told. So the server came to give me a heads up that they seem like a problem. Sure enough, they each start with a Caesar salad and send it right back. Their reason? Some of the croutons were big and some were small, and they would like croutons that were all roughly the same size. Heard. I put the new salads in the window. One had equal-sized very large croutons and one had equal-sized very small croutons, like smaller than a sugar cube. Apparently, they learned not to be petty because they shut up and ate them. In a pickle over pickles, we had a gentleman come in and order one of our burgers. He said extra pickles, we normally do 3, so each extra was 3 more and 12 total. When it went to his table, he said he wanted more, I gave him 3 more and he sent it back. At this point, it was time to shut this stupid stuff down. I took all of the pickles and scooped through the pickle bucket to find 20 to 25 of the smallest slices I could find. They were all about dime-sized. I loaded his burger up and I didn't come back. For reference, his original 12 pickle order was more than these 20 to 25 pickles. The next one, could I get some more onions? This regular always comes in and orders her burger with an obnoxious amount of onions. Normally we do 2 rings and she initially always asks for about 30. No BS, and then proceeds to send the server back 3 or 4 more times for a small plate of about 15 more. It's disgusting, and one day we were busier than usual when she tried to pull this again. Rather than having to keep stopping to accommodate her, I took the biggest red onion we had, pushed it through the slicer, did not separate the rings and put the entire onion on her plate. The server laughed her rear off when the lady left because she did not touch any of the onions. Apparently, she took great joy in making the server run back and forth, and that was a buzzkill for her. What am I supposed to do with this? We had a regular nightly customer place the same order for pickup 15 minutes before closing every night for 4 months straight. We hated her because she treated all staff she dealt with like crap, made ridiculous demands, and then no matter what, would send it all back to be refired even though nothing was ever wrong with the order. One particular thing she would do is order 6 shrimp pasta dishes and request 3 additional portions of shrimp for each one. But she did not want the shrimp on top like it comes, she wanted it on the side. No big deal, other than how she wanted it. She didn't want it all together, she did not even want the 4 total portions for each order together. Nope, she wanted each of the 4 portions for each of the 6 orders separately packaged. That takes a real long time to do, way more than necessary, all because she gets off on being difficult. So I was not having it one night, we knew she was coming, so all total I knew I needed 288 shrimp. Which she got individually packaged in 288 ramekins. She was pissed. She said, what am I supposed to do with this? GM said make sure they're all there, so she proceeded to count 288 ramekins as I watched from the kitchen with a grin. After that, she had no problem allowing us to start packaging it the way it was made to be and even started tipping. They eventually stopped coming, wins all the way around. And the next one is titled, Did I Betray My Wife? So, my wife and I are both 32. Since we got married and moved in together 5 months ago, my wife has simply not made nearly enough food for me. This is not kind of a situation where I'm constantly agitated at her for incompetence or anything like that. Honestly, I would be more than happy to microwave a burrito. I would be more than happy to whip up a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But the point is, I can't. My wife has, every single night of our marriage, done the same thing. She will make me a tiny dinner. I'm talking like a Chinese chicken salad with 30 grams of chicken and 10 leaves of lettuce arranged fashionably with dressing. When I finished eating, I'm still hungry because for a 230-pound man who works a physical labor job, it's not enough food. At first, I tried to openly communicate with her, but she always took it horribly. She would adopt a 1,000-yard stare and then begin talking about how incompetent she is and how she cannot even make her husband a proper dinner. I would try to calm her down with, oh honey, that's not the case, I just eat too much. Or, don't worry about it, I can make a bit more. I would just try to be overwhelmingly positive, but it never helped. She would always get incredibly disappointed in herself, cry and or take it out on me. Then she would make the exact same amount the following day. After the communication route failed, I tried to eat her dinners as is. And seriously, it became hard to sleep at night due to hunger and I lost 7 pounds in the first month. Eventually, I figured out my own system. On my way home from work, I started swinging by a fast food restaurant and getting myself a burger. I would basically pre-game her meals with some more calories. I figured it was win-win as what she doesn't know cannot hurt her and I could have my fill of food. I would eat on my way home, walk in the door, pick at the salad or quinoa or homemade mac and cheese she made, compliment her for delicious cooking and later dispose of the wrappers discreetly. 2 days ago, I was on my way home and in line at a drive-thru, my mother-in-law was coming out of the restaurant. She ran over and greeted me. I asked her in a humorous way not to tell her daughter where she saw me because she would take it badly, and she agreed, but then she narsed on me anyway. Or maybe it is narked, I'm not exactly sure. I got home to a furious wife who demanded details. When I provided the truth, she got extremely angry and looked legitimately hurt. I'm not good at handling confrontation, and I feel like I betrayed my wife in some way. Was I wrong here? Comment number 1, it's a little concerning that she goes full passive-aggressive when you say something to her. It sounds like she has a really hard time when her carefully crafted mental image of herself is even slightly challenged. NTA. Comment number 2, NTA. Honestly, I find all the "what's to stop you cooking" etc. comments so off the mark. Would you say that if a man was controlling a woman's diet and guilting her for stopping for fast food or making a sandwich? Clearly OP and his wife have a setup where he does a physical job and she mostly cooks, nothing wrong with that. She is controlling his food intake and refusing to adapt to his dietary needs. She applies avoidance tactics when reasonably confronted. She is likely not eating enough herself for dinner based on the description of a typical meal. All signs point to an eating disorder. OP, get your wife some help, please. And here, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this story. Do you think OP is being the a-hole here or not? And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.